Hey guys, what's going on? Matt here, and welcome back to the Black Ops 3 Mod Tools scripting series. So in this video, we're going to be using structs. Now, all a struct really is a point in your map which your script can sort of reference. They're typically used for like spawning an item in, doing something at a set origin, things like that. There's obviously a lot of different use cases from. You can see actually over here, we've got structs all over the place, these sort of red boxes. You've got spawning points, you've got various things. In this case, though, we're going to be doing a vending machine. So the way this will work is when the player goes up to it, they can knife it once per round. And when they knife it, they're going to get given a random reward. In this case, it's going to either be a power-up of our choosing, or it's going to be a perk of our choosing. Now, the reason why I've done these very specific sort of thought of rewards is one, if it's a power up, then we can spawn the power up on the struct, so we can sort of spawn it at a very certain location. And the other side of it is the perk. This allows me to sort of show you how to actually do the sort of perk drinking animation as well. So if that's something you want to do, then this is obviously a pretty good example for that. So two different sort of rewards, and we can do that. And we'll be doing a little bit of different coding logic in this as well. A little bit different from what we've been used to, but it fits really quite nicely with the example. Pretty similar to the one that's used in Black Ops 6 already, on Liberty Falls, the Easter egg on there, but obviously not quite the same as well. So first things first is to go ahead and put in a damage trigger, because we want this to be triggered when the player melees it. So we're going to go ahead and do trigger and do damage over in our entity browser. I'm just going to resize this just to be in front of the vending machine, but also a little bit off the ground, just so the player sort of has to crouch and then melee. Next, what we're going to do is go over to entity info and disable absolutely everything that's not melee. So we're going to do explosion, fire, misc, pistol, projectile, rifle, and splash. You've got to check all those boxes, so the only way you can do it is via melee. Next, let's give it a target name. So we're going to do vending machine trigger. Like so. I'm just going to copy that just so I can paste it into the script later. Next, let's put in the actual script struct. So down here, script struct, drag and drop that in. If you do find yourself using things quite commonly, quite often, what you can do is you can right click on the option and go to toggle favorite. Or what's going to do is if you then right click, you can then see you've got some options down here. This is where the script struct is. I used a few different things as well, and these is basically just a bit of a quicker way to put things into your map. That's really it. But it'll add it to like your favorites at the very bottom of the menu here. So now we've got the struct in. Let's link the trigger to the struct. So select the trigger, then the struct, press W, that'll link that. So now we can sort of go ahead and grab that in the context of, well, using the trigger, I guess. It's not quite in the context of it, but it's using it. So we'll move this away from the vending machine a little bit, just so we can sort of, when we're spawning a power up, it's not immediately there. Go ahead and save the map. Next, let's head over to the actual script. So I'm in the main map GSC at the moment. Let's go ahead and thread a new function, which is going to be, I don't know, the level thread vending machine we'll use. There we go. Checking that I spelled it right. It looked like I spelled it wrong at first. So do down here is do function vending machine. And quite a lot of this will be kind of similar. There's only a few different things in the script. As I say, doing the perk drink animation and the way we're actually sort of selecting the reward, like knowing how to handle it. That's really the only difference here, but I think it's quite useful regardless. It shows a bit of different logic. So first, let's set up the trigger. So this is going to be the actual damage trigger itself. Equals get ent trigger name, which I copied earlier. There you go. Now let's set up the struct next. Now I'm going to make this into a global variable so we can access it wherever we want in the script. Just because depending on what you're doing, it's probably going to be a bit easier rather than passing it through every single function until it's actually used. Completely up to you, but I just think it's a little bit nicer to set it a bit more globally. So we do level dot vending reward, vending reward struct. Now this is a little bit different. So up to now we've been using getEnt to get everything. This is going to be a little bit different. I'm going to use struct get. So we're going to do struct. We don't need to worry about importing struct, as we've done previously in some other scripts, because it's already included within your sort of GSC, like your main map GSC. So we don't need to worry about that. But I'm going to do a double colon get. And now this is literally the same as getEnt. So it's going to be the target name, which in this case it's trig.target. And the second one is going to be target name. There we go. So I'll say the only difference is sort of how we get, but everything else is pretty much the same. Next, let's set up the actual reward. So these are, what the player can receive from the vending machine. Something to note here, if the player already has the perk, which has been selected, we're just going to do the laugh sort of sound. That's it. I'm not making the script too complicated where we sort of go and select another perk or do something else. If you've already got it, it's just going to do the laugh sound. I don't want to sort of move too far away from what this video is supposed to be about, which is literally spawning something on a struct. So just a bit of a heads up, I guess, that sort of logic will be coming when we get to it. So rewards, we'll set up a new array for the rewards, and we'll do one power up, so we'll do double points. And we'll do, actually we should probably do two things right, because we want to have a decent chance of getting something spawning. So we'll do double points and we'll do insta-kill. There we go. And now we'll do two perks. So the way we get the perk name, I'm just going to put the code in there too, so we can put the perk names in when we get them. Now the easiest way that I know how to get the perk name is by going and grabbing the prefab, entering the prefab, selecting the actual perk machine, and you'll see we've got script and noteworthy, and it's going to be this value here. So in this case it's specialty quick revive. You can just leave that, paste that in there, and then we'll do the same, I guess, to jug. I'm sure there is other ways to get this, but this is just the easiest way that I use, is using the prefabs, which of course, once you've done it a few times, you probably know what the actual perk name is anyway. I realise they're actually called quick revive, but I guess, the code sort of side of it, this is what they're known as. So we'll go ahead, we'll put the rewards into the array. I think we did that in one of the last videos. I don't remember exactly which one it was, but we sort of went over arrays. Next, what we need to do is set up the loop for actually sort of waiting for the trigger to be activated. So we'll do a while loop. And we'll do trig wait till trigger. And we, of course, want the player in this case because there's a possibility that we'll be spawning in, giving them a perk. So we'll put player there. Next, I'll just leave a comment. Do I want to leave a comment? No, I'll type it out. We can just do the rest later. So we'll do player, and we'll just call this spawn reward. I'm aware this function doesn't exist yet, but we'll create that shortly. So we'll do player spawn reward. That's obviously where we'll actually be handling the reward. Now I mentioned that we'll be doing this, we'll be allowing this to happen once per round. So we'll do a level wait till. And what we will put in here is between round over. Now what this will do is it's going to allow us to obviously start the script. It's going to allow the trigger to be activated once. And then we're going to spawn the reward. Well, we will do eventually. And then we're going to wait until the round is over. So wait until the next round starts before it is able to be triggered again. Now the reason why we put this at the very end is because we of course want the player to be able to do it on round one. Otherwise, if we put this up here, then we would have to wait until the round has already been completed before it sort of becomes active. So that's something pretty important to think about, exactly when you want it to start. Is where obviously you want this to be going. So Once the player has, of course, triggered it, we now need to go ahead and spawn in the reward. So I'm going to make a new function called spawn reward. Now, of course, this function now needs to know what the reward is. So we're going to pass in reward because we are. Do we need to do it up here? No, yeah, this is good. I thought I missed a step, but I didn't. I can do it within here. So now we need to go and, of course, select reward. We absolutely could do reward equals, and then go ahead and select one of these items at random, and then pass in this. But just to kind of keep things a bit more simple, we can do all that logic within here. We don't need to sort of make another variable to then pass that in. What we can do is we can do rewards. Doing the square bracket, so we'll do open and close just so we know where we're at. And then within here, we then of course need to actually sort of figure out which one of them it is. And all we're going to do is we're going to do random int range. Spell that right. I really spelled this wrong. There we go. I really spelled that wrong then. Well, so random int range, and we're going to do from 0 to the number of rewards. Like so, and that is as simple as that is. Of course, we can put this logic into its own variable and then pass it if we want. But I don't think this is too complicated. I think it's fairly readable. As long as you know kind of what things are doing, and just selecting a random number between 0 and the size of the array, and then sort of passing in the string. So accessing the array and passing in that text, that string into this function. That's pretty much it. If you're not, if you don't know too much about arrays, I do have a video about that, so I kind of go into detail about how we access things. So that certainly might be helpful. So next, what we need to do, of course, is accept this data coming through. So we'll go do reward. In this case, it's going to just be literally one of these being passed into here. Next, what we need to do is actually do a few. Well, we need to do a few different things now. So depending on what the reward is, we want to be doing different things. For example, do we spawn a power up? Do we give a perk? There's a few different things. Now, you absolutely could put some if statements in here. So, do if something, otherwise, do something else type of thing. But this is a really good use case to be using a switch. Now, all a switch is pretty much a if statement, but where you can have a lot of different outcomes. So the only real requirement for this, though, at least normally, is to have things kind of related. So, for example, in this case, everything is a reward. So we can basically check the value of the reward. If you did want to have more complicated logic, it's probably more useful to go ahead and use if statements just to make things a bit more readable. But if you are literally just checking what the value of this is kind of what this is best suited for. So we're going to go ahead and do switch. My spelling today is not great. So switch, and we're going to pass in reward. And now we have 4 different options for this. We have 4 different things that reward could be. So I'm going to do brackets. And the way this is structured is we're going to do case, and then the first option, followed by a colon. So go ahead and copy double points. So if reward is double points, then do the stuff in here. If it is not that, and maybe it's insta-kill, we're going to do case insta-kill. And, I'm sure you can kind of see the pattern here. So before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's just put in a little bit of code just to sort of handle these first 2. So in this case, we should probably start noting actually what self is. So self is the player in this case. So we're going to do self. Let's do spawn power up. And we'll pass in the reward. Like so. And then at the end of here, we want to do return, because we want to just return straight back to the main function. that this is just something I prefer to do. I always prefer that once we've ended a case, I prefer to return. Just something I've got in the habit of doing, really. So next what we need to do is, of course, do the same thing to the insta-kill. I'm not focusing right now on trying to simplify it down even more. I want to just kind of make it, show the use case for it, if you will. So we've got the power-ups basically handled. Of course, I need to make the functions for these yet. We can do it in a moment. Next, we need to actually handle a perk now, though. So we'll do the next case, which will be case specialty quick revive. Same thing. I'm just going to put in that, and then do case, which will be armor vest, like so. Super simple. Now let's do the logic, I guess, for these. So let's do self give player perk, with the perk being the reward. You absolutely could just pass in the text into here again, but because we already know it's double points, you don't have to. You can just pass in reward because we know reward is going to be equal to this. We can do return. There we go. And we can just copy and paste this and put this straight back in here. So this is basically going to compare the value of reward to each of these 4 things and then run the code based on that. As you can see, that's a lot, well, at least I find that a lot easier to read than doing a bunch of if statements anyway. So that is that. Next what we need to do is of course, set up this spawn power up and give player perk. So function, do spawn power up first. Where of course we are passing in the power up. Note here that I'm passing in reward, but the actual name of this is going to now be known as power up. You don't have to name them the same. You can name them 2 different things. In this case, it's reward because we're passing in reward. But in this case, I've changed it to power up because I find it better that we know what it's called. So when we're in spawn power up, I know that this power up is the power up. If I was to have this as reward, it doesn't necessarily have to be a power up. I just think it's a little bit better. Should somebody read this function and have no idea what it actually does, even though it's going to be quite simple, I think making things a little bit more self-explanatory, it's always helpful. I'm also going to just note here that self is equal to player. It's always good to sort of document this as you're going through. It can get really quite complicated, especially if you're multiple levels deep within a function. Or functions even, and you sort of forget what self actually is at this point. So it's always useful to sort of note that for each function, if of course you're using self. So let's spawn in the power ups. So we're going to do ZM power ups. I really don't want to put that there. It's ZM underscore power ups. Sorry. So ZM underscore power ups, double colon, and then I believe it was specific, what was it now? Specific power up drop, maybe. Go to my Black Ops 3 root. Go to share raw scripts ZM. And there should be a powerups.gst. Yeah, there we go. We'll go ahead and just search for specific. That is quite a few actually. Specific underscore, I guess, would be a bit more. It's going to be something else, isn't it? There we go. Specific power up drop. That's what I was looking for. There we go. Awesome. Clear that. So now let's sort of, replace these parameters with what it actually is. So power up name is of course the power up. The drop spot is going to be the reward struct. So I'm going to go ahead and just copy that into there, and it's going to be .origin. Power up team, I just stick at 0. Location is going to be the same as the origin. Pickup delay will give it 2 seconds. Player is going to be self. And stay forever will do false. So it will actually disappear eventually. So that is that. I think that should be okay. Next what we need to do is, of course, handle the give player perk. So we'll do function. do self equals player, and then do function, give player perk, excellent, and we do perk. So we'll pass in perk. Now this, of course, is where we're actually going to be doing the drinking animation, stuff like that. So there's kind of a few stages to this. One, we need to check if the player has the perk. If they don't have the perk, I'm just going to do the Samantha laugh. That's it. I don't want to go too in depth on this. And then, of course, if the player does not have the perk, then we'll do the drinking animation and actually give them the perk. So that's kind of the first bit of logic. So we'll do if the inverse of self. So self has perk, being perk, we'll give it. So if self, in this case, the player has the perk, which is the perk name. This is the reason why I put. I like to put all the actual names of the rewards in the rewards. Is that right? Yeah, rewards. I thought I butchered that then. That's why I like to put them in here, so we can just use the name then directly. We don't need to sort of mess around. That was a real tongue twister, that then. Okay, so if the player has the perk, then we of course don't want to do anything. We want to just play that sound, in which case we're checking for the inverse. So then we can do the logic in here. If the player does have the perk, then let's play that sound. So to do this, we're going to do self, play local sound. Now, instead of passing in a sound name here, we actually have a level variable for this, which is level dot ZMB, and then it's laugh alias. Yeah, that looks right. So level.zmb laugh alias, that's what I can use, and that's going to literally be that laughing sound. Of course, if this doesn't work for you, then just replace that with an actual sound name. And of course, the script will use that sound instead. So we'll play the sound on the player. And then the next bit is, of course, the actual giving the bottle, drinking it, and then giving the perk. So the way this actually works is the first bit is we're going to begin that perk bottle drink, but the actual result of that is the weapon name, like the original weapon. That's just the way it works. If you want to go over into here, into your scripts, and if you go down to perks, I think I'm going too far, yeah. That's power-ups, perks, there we go. Go into here, we've got a bunch of functions in here. So if we search for, I think it was give bottles or something like that. It's literally this function. I just need to get the actual function. There you go. So perk give bottle begin. So it accepts the parameters of perk, but it returns, as you can see, the original weapon. So this is the way we'll be setting this up. So we'll be setting the original weapon. So, and this is useful. So once the drinking animation is finished, and we then know what weapon to give the player back. That's kind of the idea behind this. It's almost like a 3-step process. So drink it, give them the weapon, then give them the perk. That's kind of the order of events here. So we're going to do original weapon equals self ZM perks, which I actually need to import this because I don't believe I have this. I do not. It would normally be here if I put it here. Scripts /ZM /ZM. Do it like that. So _ZM _perks. That's going to, of course, import this perks. We're down here, and now we're going to continue what we're doing. So now we've imported that, we can actually use it. It's going to be ZM perks /, and then it'll be, just double check. Yeah, it's definitely this one. With that function, and we're going to pass in the perk name. So now we have the original weapon. So when we've done everything we need to do, we can sort of return the original weapon. The next bit is to actually wait for a few conditions. Now, because the player is now drinking the bottle, there's a few things that can happen between doing that and actually being given the perk. One, we have the actual animation effectively being complete. It's kind of treated as a weapon, the actual bottle. That's kind of what it's treated as. So once the actual changing of the quote unquote weapon is done, that's great. We then want to continue. But what happens if the player goes down? So if the player happens to start drinking, but then goes down, we don't want them to just sort of glitch out and just the bottle, the weapons, everything kind of just gets a bit messy. And we kind of want to wait for a few conditions here to actually not be present, I guess. You kind of understand this, I think, once I've tapped it out though. So we're going to do self util, and then I believe it's wait till any return, something like that. I'm just going to go ahead and find it. I always like to double check when I'm doing these, make sure. So it's in shared to this one. I'm going to go down to it'll be near the bottom. So util shared, there we go. Now I believe there's a function here. I'm pretty sure it is actually wait till any. Oh, it's literally here. Okay. So yeah, we'll wait till any return. I always like to double check when I'm recording to make sure I don't give the wrong function to begin with. So wait till any return. So as you can see here, it literally just waits for any of the specified strings. It just waits for any of them. And then if any of them are in fact present, it'll return the one it actually got. So we'll go back to the script and put that in there. Util is already imported in the script. We don't need to import it. So if you don't have it, then you'll want to go ahead and grab that. So wait till any return. Now there's a few conditions here that I've actually made a note of ahead of time just to actually remember them. So we got fake death. We have death. I've taken this from one of the stock scripts. When I sort of figuring out how to sort of do this to begin with. So we've got player downed. We've got weapon change complete. And we've got perk abort drinking and disconnect. So as soon as any of these have been notified, so if you're not too sure what I mean by notify, I've got a video actually on the notify and wait tills. This is basically just a version of that. I guess a little bit more going on. That's really it. But yeah, so as soon as the game lets us know that any of these, have been a thing, if any of these have actually happened, then we will continue. If we do not have any of these, then obviously something's gone wrong. So if the player has downed, then we want to know about it because we need to sort of effectively stop this whole sort of sequence. Equally so though, if everything's gone right, and the animation has actually done what it's supposed to be doing, then the weapon change has been complete. So we want to be kind of checking all this. And then providing everything's gone the way as planned, we can then continue. And of course, if we don't hear any of these, but that's simply, it's not going to be continuing because we don't have what we need. But because we should always have one of them, we don't need to worry about that. I'm pretty sure it's this one that we get back for the animation. And the rest of them are just if like the player goes down, something happens like with the network or anything like that. Okay, so once we get all those in place and we're happy that the actual animation has completed, next what we need to do is actually end that animation completely and give back the original weapon. So if I go back to here, some people will notice this returns the message. If you do wish to use, if you do wish to know which one of these was in fact the one that made this continue, you can just put it here. I don't know. You can just do that and then you can check what result is. In this case, we don't really care. We want to just make sure everything happens as it's supposed to. So we don't need to set it to a variable. We can kind of just discard the result, if you will. But so the next step is self. And this now is where we're going to be giving the player their weapon back. With ZM underscore perks, double colon, and this is, he's going to check this as well. perk give bottle end. And you can see we have the original weapon and the perk being passed. So put that in there, and we'll pass in the original weapon, which we made as a local variable just up here, and we'll pass in the perk. Like that. So this now is going to give the player the weapon back, and all should be good. Next, let's actually give the player the perk. So we're going to do ZM perks. I just happen to know this one. I don't have to come and check the file for this one. This is just give perk. I quite frequently have these scripts open, whilst I'm sort of doing scripts myself anyway, just to use them for reference and just figure out exactly how it's supposed to be. So that's that. It's going to wait for all the animation to complete, and then it's going to give the player the perk. Next, what we don't want to do is let these scripts continue running. So if the player does not have a perk, we're going to give them the perk. But if we just left it the way it is, it's going to continue and we're going to get this laugh regardless. So what we now want to do is, once this is complete, we want to just return. And by returning, it means that it will never get past this. It'll just go straight back into the switch and then in turn go back. Well, it will complete this function and then go back into the main loop. So the only way this sound will actually get played is if the player does have that perk, in which case we'll just sort of play a sound and ignore it, I guess. So that is that. So that is, once we go up to it, we can knife it, it'll give us a random thing, and then we'll have to wait till the next round before we can do it again, and we can get, all these rewards. So I'm going to go ahead and just save this. Make sure this is saved. Yep, it's all good. And now I'm going to go ahead and close this down. And now I'm going to go ahead and compile this map in full and show you guys over in game all this working. Okay, so in game, let's go ahead and go over to the vending machine. You can see if I shoot it, press R, all this sort of stuff, nothing happens. If I go ahead and knife it though, it'll give me quick revive, excellent. Go ahead and speed this up. Okay, so if we go ahead and knife the figure again, first we need to wait for that wait till. There we go. Now we get Juggernaut. Excellent. I'm going to just make a round go again. Okay, wait for this again. And we should. There we go. We've got power up. Excellent. See that power up spawns there. Go ahead and grab that. Speed up the round by grabbing that nuke as well. Now the next thing that spawns is either going to be a power up, or is going to do the laugh because we've got all the perks. At least the perks that are in here. Probably don't need to just control it. What was your family? I don't know if you guys heard that. If it was pretty quiet, I'll raise the volume when I'm editing this. But you could hear them that we just got the laugh. So one of the perks was selected. It knows that we've already got we've got both the perks that are available within this machine. So it does the summon the laugh and nothing happens. So that's been that. So this has been Structs, and also sort of introducing the new the switch statement. When we're actually sort of doing the rewards themselves. Of course, any questions or anything like that, please leave it in the comments. But this has been all that, so hopefully it's helped, and I'll catch you guys in the next video. Bye for now.